inheritance, something in life that's already happening at all times, we could now do inside our programming. Let's think about inheritance for a second, what it is, and then we'll talk about the programming part. Inheritance in life is you inherit your family fortune, maybe you inherit some genes, you could be like me, a bit hairier, etc., a lot more brains, whatever it is. You could have black hair or blonde hair, blue eyes, brown eyes, whatever it is. It's something that you inherit from your family members. Obviously, a lot of times it could happen that you also modify whatever the inheritance is, thus, how everyone's a bit different. And with all that being said, they introduce inheritance inside programming languages. And this is really useful because it does a couple key aspects for us. One, we inherit those actions and those attributes that our parent class has, right? So those field variables or those methods that we introduced in the parent class, now we could inherit it in a derived class. So this is really useful because then we don't have to rewrite that code. Think of it as an example. We have a student, a teacher, a police officer, etc., and they all need to have a name, an ID number. We don't need to redefine that every time. So with that, it would make our code much cleaner, and you're going to see that as we go forward. And this is not only making it cleaner, it's reducing any code duplication, which is a bad thing. And overall, if the more code duplication you have, if ever it comes back to you need to change one of them, well, you need to go and change everywhere, right? Let's say as an example, if we said student, teacher, and police officer, they all have this method called talk. And whenever they talk, at the beginning, normally we just say whatever they said. But now the boss came and said, I want you to change it so that whenever they talk, their name is in front of whatever they said. Well, if normally you did not inherit, you would have to go and change that in 3 places. Well, the more places you have to change, the more risk you have that an issue could arise, where you forgot one of them and now nothing works, or it's not working as it should be. We'll check that out in code too. And lastly, I would say it's modularity. So we're going to make our classes more specific to what it needs to be and do. Nothing more, nothing less. So before we get started, there's a few terminology that I would like you guys to learn. Actually, let me go grab my pen here. So these terminology, well, first you have, let's say, the parent class. So this is the class that we're inheriting from. So let's say, as an example, person, right? From the parent class, we inherit. So let's say a student will inherit. So this is a parent class. It also could be called a base class. Yeah, that's it. I can't think of anything on top of my head right now. Yeah. Or actually, this could also be called superclass. And you're going to see that keyword being utilized later. Superclass. There we go. Yeah, I think I named all of them. Parent, base, or superclass. Now, a derived class could either be named derived, a child class. What else did I take down? Extended class, all right? Mostly a derived or a child is the ones you're going to see a lot of times. In Java, you'll see more the word extended class. Not more, but you'll see it sometimes. This is because of the keyword extend that we'll see soon. Now, some rules while we're at it before we get started. Let me change colors. So some rules that we have. You could only have one parent class. Only one inheritance. Let's say only, or one inheritance only. Even though you could have one inheritance, you could have infinite chain of inheritance. So let's say Even though student inherits from person, person could inherit from something else, right? Whatever that is. Let's say A. I don't know what person would inherit from, but and this chain could keep on going as much as you want. So that would mean that student is inheriting all the stuff from person, but remember that person is also inheriting all the stuff from A. So student is also inheriting everything from A, right? It's like your grandfather, father, and then you, right? Any other rules that's important to note? One inheritance only. I think that's good enough. Now, even though we only have one inheritance rule, it doesn't mean that others can't inherit from it, such as, let's say, teacher. So a teacher and a student both have the same parents, but they're not the same type, right? So they're both inheriting from one. They cannot inherit from two. So as an example, if I have a class called B, it can't be a student and be a teacher at the same time. It cannot do this. This is wrong. So this inheritance does not work in Java. It does work in other languages. You'll have to see the little details about that. Okay. Now, a rule of thumb to know when to use inheritance. So, well, you already know that if I want to use inheritance is because I have some code duplication, because I want to get those extra boilerplate attributes or methods that I'm going to utilize, such as, let's say, student and teacher. They both need a student. They both need a name. They both need, let's say, whatever they would get from person, such as name, color of hair, eyes, IQ, maybe, their strength, their whatever, their intelligence. Maybe ID could possibly be in the person, but that doesn't seem like to fit. But anything that they both would have in common, well, then we'll put it in the base class or the parent class and make it inherit. So if ever it changes here, it will change for both of them. And they both have access to that. Now, the rule of thumb I like to use to know when to do inheritance or not is the rule of thumb called is A. So you have to ask yourself, can we say student is a person? Right? Student is a person. And that gives you the truth, right? That sounds true. A student is a person. A teacher is a person. Now, this rule of thumb, even though you could say it, it must be true at all time. Because a person is a student. Well, it is possible that a person is a student, but it's not always true. So just make sure that when you utilize this rule, that it's always true. So a student is always going to be a person. A teacher is always going to be a person, but a person could be a student, could also be a teacher, could also be an officer, could be something else as well. So even though person has the possibility of being a student, it's not always true. So this is not good, right? So this is a keyword that you should utilize a lot. And we're going to see when we're going to compare inheritance and composition, the two keywords are going to be what determines what I'm going to utilize, okay? So these are the terminologies, these are the rules, and these are the rule of thumb to help you create these classes. And the next part, let me see if I miss anything. In the next part, we're going to actually implement this and go further. See you guys then.